Because there was a list put out by NFL.com's Nick Shook, and he went through some of the highlighted players that have made the biggest impact on their respective teams. And maybe some of these names, when they were signed in the offseason, we were thinking like, and now they've actually turned out to be great signings. And I think the same could probably be said for what the Cowboys did. As free agency, they certainly didn't make any major splashes.
Because they never do.
Some of the moves that they made really have paid off in major, major ways. And there's several candidates, I think, for the best offseason addition or best offseason signing, 877-881-1053. Who do you think was the best? You've got Jayron Kearse. Certainly would be a name to consider. Malik Hooker is performing very well as of late. DeMonte Casey, Carlos Watkins. Some names to consider out there. So let us know who you think was the best. 877-881-1053. Or, and this is interesting, should we throw this name out there? And it's not a player, but Dan Quinn.
Yeah, well, a lot of people in the Twitch chat, shout out to iSook Toes 903.
Oh, that's an interesting name, and I'm very anti that. But
never been a toe guy myself.
You do what you want to do there, iSook Toes.
Yeah, iSook Toes
or towels.
He's talking about Dan Quinn. Coop Chalta is talking about Jayron Kearse and Dan Quinn, and for me, like, when I initially saw the question, I immediately went to Jayron Kearse, which makes plenty of sense, obviously, right? I mean, that dude I didn't even think he was going to make the team. Most of us didn't think he was going to make the team.
No, considering where he came from, the Lions, the Vikings, he couldn't see the field. He was like a glorified special teamer.
Right.
You know, outside of special team snaps, I was like, I don't know how much he's really going to contribute defensively.
But like his physical traits are outstanding. Like the dude is tall, he's long, he's big, he's athletic, he's fast. And this year, man, the impact he's made on the Cowboys defense is like, I mean, it's insane. He's definitely he's going to be my biggest surprise of the year when you look at it all, because he's a guy that I didn't think would make the team, and at best he would be a special teams kind of guy. But he's turned out to be one of the biggest impact players on the defense. Like he's the surest tackler in the NFL. He doesn't miss tackles. He just straight up does not miss tackles. And if you get him around the line of scrimmage, he'll make tackles in the backfield, tackles for a loss. He can do some blitzing. He can cover. He can be a linebacker. He can play, in the back end. His versatility is outstanding. And I think Dan Quinn's used him extremely well. Like for me, Jayron Kearse, it is a no-brainer of all the signings. Like Keanu Neal was the biggest name, but
I didn't even mention Keanu Neal.
Yeah, and he
started off the season okay, but Kearse has eclipsed him. I mean, he's taken all the snaps away.
100%.
And honestly, Keanu Neal at times, there was the run Devontae Booker had, the big one early in that game. Keanu Neal just completely takes a horrible angle, doesn't read the play, and he was the reason that popped off for as big of a gain as it was. So, I mean, Keanu Neal certainly he's trending down, and Jayron Kearse is trending up big time. For me, number 2 would be Carlos Watkins. I think Carlos Watkins has been extremely underrated and underappreciated. We haven't talked about him nearly enough. I mean, against the Saints, he has the touchdown. Anytime he's really needed to be called upon, all he's done is produced and performed. And for a team that has struggled at the defensive tackle position as much as the Cowboys have, Carlos Watkins, to me, has been really, really good. And not only just as a pass rusher, but in the run game. I mean, to me, he's really athletic. He can do a lot of things for you. I love Carlos Watkins' game. I hope they can find a way to bring him back next year. But Kearse, the next level for me, where it was, okay, holy crap, this is crazy, was when he starts wearing the green dot and calling the defense. So you never see this. This is a guy who is a quote-unquote safety. To me, he's a linebacker. He's playing linebacker. That's what he's playing. He's not playing safety. He's playing linebacker for Dan Quinn right now. He's got the versatility if they need to kick him back there, but he's a linebacker is what he is. And in his first year, he wasn't one of these guys that came over and knew the Dan Quinn system. He had to learn it first year just like everyone else, right? It'd be one thing if it was Keanu Neal who was given that responsibility. And he's played under Dan Quinn, and he knows the system, and he knows the scheme inside and out. He's been doing it since he was drafted in the first round with the Falcons. But Jayron Kearse, I thought that was extremely impressive, and he really has become a leader, not only vocally, but I think in his play as well, right? There's two types of leaders. There's one that lead by example, and then there's the ones that do it vocally as well, that'll rally the troops. Jayron Kearse has proven to be both of those guys.
Yeah. The impact is, it's unquestioned. And Keanu Neal, I don't even know that Keanu Neal could have done the Dan Quinn thing, because doesn't it feel like Dan Quinn's scheme is so much more different than it ever was in Atlanta and Seattle? Especially in Seattle. He tweaked some things in Atlanta and had some different fronts and stuff, but like that's why you and I were both not very excited at all and kind of poo-pooed the addition of Dan Quinn, because it felt just like let's go find rushed, a name.
Right?
Yeah,
it was a combination of, it's just like the McCarthy hire where they didn't interview anybody. They just went ahead and it was like the first guy you interviewed, give him the job. So it was like, guys, can you do your due diligence a little bit?
But what we underrated was Dan Quinn's ability to look in the mirror and adjust what he has done, because it clearly didn't work anymore. It worked great in Seattle with all those Hall of Fame players and just kind of where the league was at that time. But the league has since adjusted to that single high man free or cover three scheme. That is just very vanilla and that sort of thing. And that's what I thought he was going to be bringing here. And it reminded me too much of Rod Marinelli, reminded me too much of the Chris Richard days. So that's why you and I both didn't really like it. But turns out Dan Quinn's ability to adapt, be willing to change and adjust and use the personnel appropriately in the way it should be used.
That's the key, right?
Like,
we haven't seen that on a coaching staff for the Dallas Cowboys since I can remember.
Yeah.
Which is a sad thing to say. But putting players in position to make plays and that really maximize their skill set. I mean, how frustrating was it for 10 years under Jason Garrett? It's like, this is my system, and you better just find a way to run it. It's like, no. If there's an injury, there's no adjustment. It's like, Tyron Smith's out, next man up, let's do it, come on. No, it's not the same. You have to tweak some things. You've got to adjust. You don't have the same player out there. It's not going to be the same. You have to manage the game, manage week to week, and adjust schematically, one, not only to who you're playing, but also to the personnel that you have at your disposal. Dan Quinn has done a masterful job of not only everything that you said in terms of looking in the mirror and adjusting to what was working and what wasn't working with his own defense and the way he called it, but also knowing the personnel that he has and being able to say, this is what this guy does well, this is what that guy does well, and finding ways to utilize them and put them in a position to succeed and get the most out of their skill sets. And that's why when the Cowboys took Micah Parsons, I was like, what are they going to do? They're playing him at off-ball linebacker? They do that? I don't know how good Micah Parsons is going to be. But credit Dan Quinn. He's used Micah Parsons all over the damn field. And if it was still Rod Marinelli, or good God, if it was still Mike Nolan, we wouldn't be talking about Micah Parsons as Defensive Rookie of the Year, let alone Defensive Player of the Year, in my opinion. I think Dan Quinn deserves a lot of praise for the success that Mike has had as well.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, Dan Quinn is one of the leaders in the clubhouse for just sort of MVP of the team. He's certainly the biggest non-player addition to the team. And I really didn't think that he would have had this much of an impact, but it is. No, I didn't either, because one of the things about most coaches, a general characteristic of most coaches is they're kind of hard-headed and stubborn, and they have big egos, and they think it's kind of their way or the highway. Right? This is what I do. This is what we've done. It worked in the past, and it's like, man, things change so quickly in the NFL. What works or what worked a couple of years ago doesn't necessarily work now, because everybody's constantly adjusting and adapting. So you have to be able to do the same thing. And I didn't know Dan Quinn from a personality standpoint. So it was unfair, I guess, for us to judge that. But that's That's just the normal assumption you have about coaches. Like, this is what they do. You don't think they're actually going to change things. Like, McCarthy sold himself as a guy that's changing all these things. He went to the barn, the McCarthy barn, and did a bunch of barnyard math and watched all the film, but didn't actually watch all the film. Said he was going to change all these things, and he didn't actually change those things. But Dan Quinn quietly did. And boom, here we find ourselves, and he's the coach I trust the most on that entire staff.
He's absolutely been fantastic, and he's put himself in a great position, which, I mean, stinks as a Cowboy fan and for the Cowboys. But if you're Dan Quinn and you do want to become an NFL head coach again, I'm sure he is at the top of a lot of people's list as a head coaching candidate because of the job that he's done helping to turn around this defense.